Yeah, welcome to the workshop. Just here setting out a new shoji job for Rye in Victoria. Yeah, we've been approached by our client last year, probably mid last year, about looking at some a shoji feature piece in their master bedroom. It's a project that's underway in Rye. It sits up high on the sand dunes and it's got pretty amazing views of. You get sort of look at Bass Strait, across at Port Phillip Bay, see a bit of Arthur Seat. So it's a special spot. The main bedroom, master bedroom's upstairs, up a staircase, and then turn sort of 90 degrees into the room. You've got a big open plan room with a fixed robe on the left, and then you've got the bed head or the bed central on the main wall. There's a door through on the left of the bed to a walk-in robe, and on the right there's sort of a double width opening that goes into the master ensuite. So we've worked with our client and we've come up with the concept of a feature shoji bedhead and wall. So I think behind the main bed we've designed a full height shoji with sort of fixed Tassie oak panels at the bottom, and that gives us an area for the custom bed to protrude from and be centered on. And then to the sides we've come up with some shoji cantilevered little bedside tables, so they'll be lit separately, separate switching 2 ways from each side, glass top, and they'll be quite a nice little feature in themselves. There'll be pendant lights suspended on each side over those for reading, and then above the main bed area, right through, we've then got the kumiko set out with traditional washi rice paper behind, and then we've got a light box plenum that we've created that backlights that whole area. So the rear lit box can be turned on separately. We'll have a 3-way connection from when you come up the stairs. So you can turn it on when you enter the room, and then you can turn it on and off from each side of the bed. So there's electrical to consider, and getting that up into the shoji feature wall, and it obviously can't come through and foul. We've got shoji doors that come through in behind, so they slide out and open and close off the master ensuite. So that's like a double module, and then into the walk-in robe there's a single door that opens up in there. So the layout needed to be considered the whole way through, so that when the doors are pushed in behind the main feature wall, the mullions and the kumiko and everything line up, so you're not getting shadowing from the light, because the light then needs to penetrate through both lots of washi rice paper and give you that sort of even light through. So bit of setting out to do. Measured up on site. The frame, it's a frame stage at the moment. The builders, Moody Builders, have framed up with the structure above, giving some flexibility to adding and subtracting on wall widths to suit this design. So that they've had good foresight there with making that work. So we met on site the other day and gone through, remeasured. I think with any frame there's slight inconsistencies. And I think with posies and trusses, often they're cambered and to take loads. So the floor area, in that area, when we set up a laser and measured down to the floor, got a 7mm discrepancy each end, which is back to sort of load bearing walls, is quite within a mil, and then through the middle we've got we've got a 7mm discrepancy. So we've allocated a 10mm set down from the ceiling, which will give us room to pack our top track and get that through, and then the bottom track will be packed through and floor levels played with. So we've got that got that to sort of work with on site. When you look here, just spin around and show you some. Yeah, so this is some frame shots taken on site the other day. So you can see that's the main ensuite behind the feature wall. We're looking through the feature wall there. As we move along, you can see there again. The right hand side here is the opening into the ensuite. This is the main feature wall section. Then we've got the opening through into the walk-in robe. There's another fixed robe here that'll have shoji in it as well. And you can, coming through, you can see that, yeah, that's that robe space. And then when you turn, that's the robe space, and then you turn around and we've got another fixed wall, and that's your staircase going down. So there's a fixed robe going in here. It's going to be extra depth with perimeter lighting internally, and there'll be hinged shoji there. So that'll be another sort of featured area. So that's yeah, that's the original sort of sketch design, just coming up with some sort of basic sort of concepts. But this is actually now turned into like a 4-panel, 2-panel and a single panel. But there's a bed with cantilevered base, central mullion that runs through, cantilevered shoji boxes on each side. We've worked to a king size bed, and we've worked out areas for wiring and switching. And then the door each side, these double doors come out, and that single door comes out. So that's that was sort of looking at more of a sort of a plan view, with the light box behind with LED lighting, and then you've got this screen slides in here, and this screen slides in here. So we've got when they're back in place and the openings are open, it's important that the mullions and the kumiko slats and everything aligns, so the light coming through, there's no shadowing of the screen behind, and you've got that sort of even disbursement of light through the area. Some detailing on the ends for this other robe, and packing out walls to suit. So we've done a full scale set out today, which I'll show you in a second, on 3mm MDF. That was just another sketch went through with the client, positioning of the switches and where they sat in conjunction with the side little boxes or bedside tables. This is some sort of dimensions here where we've divided up the area, and we've worked that whole perimeter through. But then we've got that's our 65mm mullions on our main shoji line, with an 862.71 sort of spaces in between. And that gave us an overall there of 1920, and with a 1830 wide bed, gave us 90mm, so that's 45mm a side. So when you're looking at this little section here, you've got the mattress, and then you're seeing a section of the side of the bed base, which will be sort of nicely featured, not wide enough that it's going to impair your seating and getting in and out of bed, and that then aligns with that that mullion on the two main screens, and then the two adjoining screens then give us the flexibility of positioning the bedside tables and cantilevering them off the wall, and getting all those sort of proportions right. So a bit of thought on sorting all that out. I'll just clear some space here, and we'll have a look at the set out we've done. So I think if we look along here just quickly, we've got 3mm MDF. We've got three and a part sheets that pick up that whole wall line. On the end here, we've drawn the framed wall with plaster line, and then we've got the perimeter, or the rear wall section. That's the alignment through into the ensuite. So that's that junction that we've been looking at here. So at the moment, the frame runs to here. We're looking at extending it out, and we're putting a black 16mm backing board for our light box, which will have the LED lights vertically aligned, mid kumiko spacings. And then we come around and we've got a detail here. We've got a 90x45 painted black, heavily screwed and glued through. That'll be then screwed to the floor and screwed into the ceiling frame. But that then picks up a 7mm villa board, 3mm glue, 10mm tiles, and that then gives us alignment through with our 65mm mullions. So this is our front frame. It's a 65 by 42 and a 32 behind. Got a little 6x6 shadow line, 10mm gaps between our screens, and we did a full set out. So we've divided up the whole space and playing with walls to align where all these modules are the same. So when this door is pushed back into that space and the N65 ends up back here, all the Kumiko and mullion frames through to the light box are aligned, and you won't really experience any of that shadowing, and you'll have that even disbursement of light coming through. So this wall here needs extending out, obviously, to pick up this new alignment. We've detailed here a small angled end, so the tile's got something to finish to, and then this area will be painted out black, 10mm shadows each side, and the screen slides back in. And as you move along here, that's we've got a 19mm Tassie oak insert panel at the bottom, which will then have our bedside tables of it. And the bedside tables are sitting here. We've done a layout where we've got, that's our next mullion, and that's our bed line coming out that we talked about before. So that's your 45mm section showing to where your mattress sits. And then we've created 120 offset to our bedside table. Gives us an 80mm vertically aligned switching, sits here. There's a 20mm gap each side, close proximity to play with switching. There's obviously a three-way switch each side of the bed and back to the stairwell for the rear feature light. There's a two-way to the bedside tables from each side of the bed, and there's a two-way for the pendant light that's suspended over from each side of the bed. And then the main ceiling lights will be just on a one-way back to the stairwell, and then into the bathroom and walk-in robe. We're going to position some overhead gimbaled lights so that they angle back and give some backlight to the doors when they're in their closed position. So you could light up the whole wall as a feature wall, and the idea is to try and get some good light behind those other areas, but that won't be switched from the bed. That'll be switched locally at each end. But consideration of that full light disbursement through. If we just pop back a little bit here too, we've then done a broken section here which sort of shows our track details. So we've talked about sometimes we use Hayfelly and Brio track systems, and we canvassed those options with the client. But most of the shojis we do, we're using traditional tracks. So this is what you'd see in Japan. You've got head section, and the shoji obviously sits up and then drops down onto these lower sections. So these lower sections, normally we're working on like a 20mm by 3mm rebate, and the top's 20mm wide, 15mm high. So that's sort of standard sections. Most of the shoji we're doing are like in a 30mm thickness section of screen. Here we've stepped up to the 42. We need a bit more strength for what we're trying to do, and that's obviously you got the bed consideration. You've got you have the cantilevered bedside tables. We need a decent thickness of veneered ply in those inserts to take that and be able to support it. And then we've also got to create a decent pocket to get electrical in. So we've created on the side here. That's that front screen. So 65 by 42 deep, and then we've created a 65 by 32 deep plant-on section behind. So that lower section, there's that plied base, and you can see the ply panel here. We've got a plied panel on the back, and I'll just show you another section of that down the other end here. So this is the other end of the screens. So again, you've got that mattress line or the bed line, mattress line lining up with that mullion. We've done a split view here, but you can see that's our Kumiko 19 by 7 running through with our rebat at the back for paper. And then we've done a split view here where then we show, that's obviously above the mullion line. This is below. We've created, we've got a 10 mil setback at the front, and then our 19 mil veneer board. And then on the back here, we've created, it's trenched in on the back on that 32 by 65. We've actually done a rebated back section. And then we've got a 7 mil ply sheet that's screw fixed. And the idea there is it gives us this big cable area. So there'll be cable feeds up from below, because obviously can't come through from the wall behind, because they'll foul the screens sliding through. So they'll come up below, and then we've got that decent pocket. We're going to talk to the builders about, on each side, having access panel in the garage below, so that the idea is these front fixed screens can actually slide. They'll be fixed in position, but you'll be able to remove some screws, and then they can slide each way, which gives you access to the lighting pockets behind. But to slide them or lift them out, the electrical connection to the switch needs to be disconnected and dropped. So I think it's not going to be something that needs regular maintenance or attention, but I think in time, we've built in that ability to be able to access the rear wall and fix any lights that may fail in the future. So that's that's sort of that split view showing what we're doing below, what we're doing above. Again there you can see the little 6x6 shadow line, got the 10 mil spacings each side of the screen, and this is obviously the screen that's now coming out to close off the access to the walk-in robe. At the moment, the wall lines here, so that's got to be extended out, and then we've got plaster coming around and aligning with our timber screen and fixed timber screens. So here we've allowed 12 mil on the side, I think, with 10 mil plaster and a full stopping bead, like a return U section, holds nicely in that situation rather than just an L bead. And typically that sort of builds out another 2 mil, so that'll be, so we've allowed 12 there, because it's very important, obviously, that we're getting this nice alignment through. Put a lot of attention into that. You can see here we've got a bit of an overlap here of about 10 mil. Whereas the other end with the tiles, we obviously had a thicker section running back. So that's not really an issue. I mean, this could be built out, that's a 90 by 45, that could be built out at 10. But the lighting's still going to sit in here, and that detail's not going to be seen. And the detailing here is, it works, and there's no need to bring that out the extra 10. So the backing board on right through there is that 16 mil with all the lights. So the lighting's still got to be set out. If we pop back, and we can then look at that detailing with the head and the foot of the screens. So here, it's obviously a 19 mil Tassie oak, 3 mil deep rebate, but 20 mil wide. So you can see here, you can see here we've done our set out. We've got a 22 mil offset, and then using our standard 20 mil wide, 3 mil deep trench. So the screen will sit in there. We've got this plant on section, that's that 32. That gives us the extra depth for the pockets for the electrical. There'll be a plant on mullion that runs, that 32 by 65 runs the full height, but that's screwed on, so it means you can, I think having that in place and angling the screen in and up into that rebat and dropping it down would mean that it's a much thicker section, and would mean need more clearances to accommodate that. So we've got that plant on, so it can be removed, and then the screens can be dropped in, and then we can screw that from behind. And then behind that, just the lower section of where the where we've got the plant, well, we've got the little side tables. We'll have that built out area for the electrical cabling. Then got your 10mm gap, 42mm screen, and again we've got our 20mm by 3mm rebate. Screen sits down there, and we've taken the screen back that way. I mean, sometimes we could have had the rebated section here, but it's in getting very close to the 10mm takes us back to that tiled and plastered return line. So I think leaving only 10 on here and here, it doesn't leave a lot of meat, so it's more prone to damage. So we've bought the and the same this side here. Obviously, the idea was not to protrude out here too far, so we kept that in line. So we can play with the side that they sit on. Yeah, so that's obviously a base. It's they're all custom run, but this is much more sort of custom orientated to suit this application. The ceiling here, we'll be putting this through, packing it down, getting it perfectly level, and then the builder will be putting in a stopping bead here or a P50 10mm shadow line each side. It's painted out, and then the grooves here will be left raw, so raw timber, and then this will be painted out with the ceiling cover. On the floor, the idea would be there'll be a water stop end with a aluminium angle on the end here, and that'll get waterproofed in and up, and that forms that, and then there'll be a small little cork joint along this side. And on this side, I think they're looking at engineered floorboards, so there'll be a continuation from here. But if it was carpet or another surface, the idea is they can all be flush aligned. So that's the detailing on that section, and when we've drawn that up, we've obviously drawn all the wall lines, and then we've divided up the spaces to work to the same screen dimensions throughout, and then we've worked on the detailing of the joining rooms and how they align through, and then we've worked on a track detail to accommodate that proposed screen. So we move along. We looked here, the switching, the gaps, the bedside table, the bed base, the exposed perimeter plinth. Working through, that's another mid vertical mullion. We've been through that little area there. Side tables are 563 in width. We've been through that detail into the robe. That gives us a 927 opening, clear finish. And then when we look here, the current, this is the robe area, but the current wall lines here, we're looking at bringing it out here, 10mm plaster returning around, 90mm frame coming around, and we're building wall stops here. So the idea is to bring that around and return it, so that the screen lines, at that track will be coming through. So that's the front of the track line. So we've got giving ourselves sort of 20mm back to the plaster return line. And then when the screen runs out, it's running into a plaster end. So that's sort of a thickened end wall, but it does free up some space internally. So if the builder wanted to, or the client was happy to look at entertaining it, obviously it's a way up of cost versus reward, but there's this extra depth here that could be used for a deeper robe section from the adjoining walk-in robe. That's something to consider. The main wall line through on the stairwell, we've looked at we've got an extended cupboard here with shoji hinged door sections. So look at the 20mm shadow. There's a timber, the carcass comes out. We've got a fairly small 25mm cup hinges, which can work on a 22 max thickness door. So that gives us, you've got a 45 to 22 mullion, so it still keeps that quite fine. The gaps are sort of 4 to 5mm on the doors, and they need to be opened individually. So we need to obviously work with their cabinet maker on that detailing and make sure everyone's happy. But the idea was 75mm back, worked on that hinge, and then we'd have a perimeter light within each carcass on 4 sides, which would then create this as sort of a light box, and you get light coming through the shoji front. It then gives you, a 600 deep shelf line. So overall carcass 752, meaning the back wall of the stair won't have plaster on it. Obviously be insulated and plastered, but no plaster to get that depth. So yeah, it's quite a bit of detailing, and sort of we find, I think, drawing it out scale 1:1, you can resolve a lot of detailing, and just work through methodically on the options, and detail all that up. So I think we'll show you some other, a sectional view now. So this is a section through the space. So this is the head, but we'll maybe start at the base. So this is the bottom floor section. So we've got yellow tongue chipboard. Then we've got a 19mm bottom track, and then we've drawn the bottom sections of the screen. So we've got a 120 bottom mullion. That's your 32mm plant on that runs up the back and makes that thicker, and that's where we've got the pocket there for wiring. And the rear screen, it's 42 Kumiko's set in at 19. You've got the rebate and the paper line behind, and then that's your 10mm shadow back to the light box. The light box actually sits back in there. So the bottom section here, we've got the 19mm board sitting in there. The bed's coming out. Got the bed at 242 above floor level, which gives you a 200mm. It's a 42mm timber section plinth that runs around, so it gives you 200 clear under the bed. It's coming in nicely above the bottom mullion line, and we're then, as we come up, we've then got the top of the mattress that gives you up to sort of a 260 mark for a mattress, and 500 to mattress level from finished floor. So that's sort of quite a comfortable height to sit on the edge of the bed and get in and out. We've then got the actual shoji bedside lights sit up 100mm past the mattress line. So I think they'll just put a nicely peak, and they could potentially, we'll end up doing a scaled drawing of all of this, and then we can reconsider just where they sit, but they could potentially go, I think, a little bit higher. I mean, often bedside tables are sort of sitting flush with mattress height, or up to 100mm higher. I think in this case the bedside tables are actually, they're lit, so they're actually providing a light source as well as a spot to sit things on beside your bed. But I think, so I'm thinking they may actually go a little bit higher once we do a scale drawing and we have that conversation with the client. I think they might actually creep up a bit, maybe up at another 50 or 100mm. So we'll look at that, and it's also getting those proportions right, because we've then got a ply section. So the ply section goes up to, and again we've had to work out Kumiko space and so you've got them even all the way through, and we've got that alignment here of the Kumiko lining up with the back screens, and the back screens that come out and close off the walk-in robe and the ensuite, a full height Kumiko and paper, so they don't have this ply insert at the bottom. So again, that's important, was getting that alignment of the Kumiko and light source coming through. But we've run the ply obviously up higher, and that gives you that backing section, for pillows and leaning up and sitting against pillows and reading. You don't want to be putting pressure back on, the paper and Kumiko, which is, not it's a very delicate piece, and that's the beauty of shoji, but it's not up for that sort of durability. So that mullion is up 565 off mattress, we were trying to work around the 500 mark, and that's sort of common, but we've gone 565 to obviously align the Kumiko slats, and the bottom of our 65mm mullion actually gives us the 500 off mattress, so that's worked out nicely. And then if you work up, you can see we've got the Kumiko slate spacings all the way through. There's a bit, a bit of calculating there, playing around with that, and then we get up to the head section, and we've got 32mm section. We've got 10mm worth of packing, so I think in places that'll be tight and packed on others, but that'll be perfect level, and the builder will then be lasering in a grid system for 10mm plaster, and that'll either be a stopping bead or a P50 shadow each side. And again, sealing lines running through. Top mullions, you can see that's that plant-on section behind, screwed, and that runs the whole way up. So I'll just slide that back, and then we'll just sit up and put on. I'll put on the bed and the side table section, and we can have a look at that. Okay, so this is, a protrusion, still this same section view, which has come on from what we just went through. But you can see that's our base there again, coming up. That's our, so you got the bottom tracks and the screens, and then it's our floor line through, and then as you work up here, you can see that's the 42 bed base, so that's sort of coming out, and then as you come up, you can see there we've got mattress line, so that's mattress line coming right through, and then we've drawn, at the moment, I'll try and get that straight on. So you can see here, we've drawn the bedside table light. So that comes out, it's in a 30 by 30 section and around. And we have those little protrusions, a 6mm protrusion on all three sides of each junction. And then we've done a Kumiko layout, which is nicely sort of dividing up the spaces with some nice ratio differentials. So that's backlit behind on both sides, the front and the top. And the top has like a little inset section of glass, so you can set things on there. And then that's lit on a separate circuit. You can see in behind, we've got a pillow line in the flat position. And then we've got pillow lines in the upright position where they'd be sitting, when the bed's made. And that's finishing just nicely with that mullion line. So I think, one, it's practical, but two, when the bed's made and it's, all in its normal state, it all feels very proportional and in the right spot. So that's the wrap on our set out today. I think from here we'll be converting the key details from this to CAD and doing an elevation for the client to sign off on. And I think just to make sure those proportions are right and they understand what's being built for them. I think we have met and we've sat on a chair and leant back against a backing and been through all those little details in person rather than just talking about them. They've experienced the action of each of those things. So I think there's been quite good communication and experiments with what they're getting. So I think it's just sort of looking at the final 2D elevation perspective and just making sure those proportions work. I think, in my mind, I think everything is sort of sorted, except for maybe just the height of the shoji tables. I think the width, the depth, and the height of them are right, but just their positioning, the height positioning off floor, and where they sit in that bottom ply panel. I think in conjunction with, or in sitting beside the main bed with pillows and a made bed, I think it's probably the only thing just to double check and make sure that's been considered. So I think it's Saturday. I think Monday we'll get into the drawing all that up, and the guys will get started on pre-cutting and making all this componentry. I think on site-wise, we've got to think about how we're getting them in there. I think at the moment the house is locked up, so there's windows in and outdoor cladding. We've looked at taking out one of the awning windows, and I think we've got like a 2-4 something diagonally dimension through there, so it's not big enough to get these shoji, or the 4-panel shoji, which would be behind the bed, which would be nice to have that made up in one in the factory, and then get it to site. I think the other 2 screens we could get in, and obviously all the robe screens we'll be able to get in, but that main bed head section won't be able to be brought in that way. So we're going to talk to the builder about potentially making it the factory, but then removing the stairwell wall, upper wall, cutting that and lying it down in in its form, and then obviously before the stair goes in, we bring our finished screen up and then have it in the room, re-stand the wall, and they can get refixed off. Obviously pre-plaster, pre-wiring, pre-air conditioning, pre-rough ends, and then the idea was to if we can't do that, really hoping we can, but if we can't do that, we're going to have to actually make it, dry fit it, pull it apart, and then actually put it together in the room, which will be a bit more challenging, not having all factory equipment on site. So we'll look at options there. I think conveying some of this detailing to the builder, I think the easiest way to do that is to just take the templates down and run them through it and leave them on site, and they can build out and play around with wall lines. I'm thinking that the track, obviously the tracks is our next thing. I think we'll be running them early next week, and then I think ideally we can do the screens and go down there and actually fit the tracks, fit that main screen, and then and the back blacking board with lighting, and then the builder could do their infill adjustment walls around and to those installation points. But obviously need to liaise with them and see what works in their program and what the options are. So we'll see how all that goes. But I think this is it's an exciting job. We're obviously also building the bed, so I think pretty nice project to sort of I think all those things coming together, where they're all considered together is pretty special, and look forward to getting it all together and making it happen. So stay tuned.